Okay, picture this. A hacker, right? Not like smashing through digital walls, but moving silently, almost invisible. They're mapping out your entire network, seeing at every shared folder who has accounts, maybe even when they last logged in. And the crazy part, no password needed. It's like they've got X-ray specs for your system's secrets. Now, this is some sci-fi movie scene. It's actually a really fundamental step in cybersecurity. It's called enumeration. Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take these complex, kind of dense topics and break them down into, well, practical insights you can actually use. Today, we are diving deep into Chapter 6 of Hands-on Ethical Hacking and Network Defense, the third edition by Simpson and Antil. And this is really for you, whether you're, say, a student in BCIS 4342 over at Tarleton State University, maybe in the Dr. Sampak College of Business, or if you're just starting your career in MIS-CISIT. You get the idea. Our goal, to take this pretty technical concept, enumeration, and turn it into knowledge that could, really help your career. So look, before we get into the weeds here, if you're serious about understanding this tech landscape, about locking down your career future, make sure you hit subscribe, like this deep dive, maybe share it with someone else who's also building their tech skills. Trust me, you don't want to miss the kind of insider tips we share that could genuinely save your bacon one day. Or your company's data. All right, so we've talked before about the early stages, right? Like footprinting, gathering info from the outside, and port scanning, finding the open doors. But once you know a system's there, and you know which doors might be unlocked, what's the next step? What are ethical hackers or security pros trying to achieve then?
Yeah, that's a perfect setup because that next step is enumeration. It's moving past just knowing, hey, there's a server at this address.
Mm-hmm.
Enumeration is the process where you actively connect to that system, not just seeing it, but engaging with it to pull out really specific, detailed information. Think of it like this. Footprinting and scanning are like seeing a building from the street, knowing its address. Enumeration, that's like getting your hands on the actual blueprints. You're figuring out the internal layout, maybe even who's got keys to which rooms, what they do inside.
Oh, I like that blueprint analogy. That makes sense. So what kind of details are we talking about? If I'm wearing my ethical hacker hat, what am I actually looking for during enumeration?
You're really trying to paint that complete internal picture. So during enumeration, you're actively probing for things like what resources are being shared, any shared folders hanging out on the network. That's huge. You're also trying to map out the network topology, the architecture. How does everything talk to everything else, that digital blueprint. And then it gets more personal usernames, user groups on the network, sometimes even information about those users, like when they last logged on. It's all about piecing together how the system works internally and who has the keys.
And this loops right back into network defense, yeah. The course description mentions intrusion security testing specifically to improve network defense. So it's not just finding flaws, it's understanding how the bad guys would actually use those flaws.
Precisely. Yeah, the goal isn't just theoretical knowledge. It's about using the exact same techniques, sometimes even the same software, that malicious hackers use. Ethical hackers do this to identify network security vulnerabilities and then, critically, figure out the best practices to secure those vulnerabilities. Yeah. Enumeration is like step one for that deep dive. You have to be proactive. You put on the attacker's mindset to find the chinks in your own armor before they do. It's like that detective analogy, again, checking the building layout, who lives there, their routines. But before the robbery, so you can install better locks, maybe add some cameras. One of the most revealing things I found once wasn't some zero-day exploit. It was a default shared folder from like 10 years prior. Totally forgotten. Enumeration finds that stuff, the digital dust bunnies that can cause real problems.
Wow, forgotten corners. That's a good way to put it. Okay, let's get specific. Windows systems. Big target. When we talk enumeration on Windows, why is knowing the history, like older versions of Windows, still important today?
It's fundamental, really. Knowing the history of any OS you're testing is vital because attack methods that worked on, say, Windows XP or Windows 7, they might still work, or parts of them might on Windows 10 or 11, especially if things weren't configured securely or if old services are still running. Understanding that evolution helps you guess where the skeletons might be buried.
Yeah.
What legacy weaknesses might still be exploitable.
Right, the ghosts in the machine. And a big part of that, historically anyway, is NetBIOS, isn't it? Can you break down NetBIOS for us? Why is it so key here?
Sure. NetBIOS Network Basic Input-Output System. It's a core Windows thing, a programming interface that lets computers talk to each other on a local network. It's really crucial for basic stuff like sharing files and printers. That name you give a Windows computer, that's its NetBIOS name. They're 16 characters long. And the very last character, it's a hex code, 00 to FF, that actually tells you what service that name is for. And importantly, these names have to be unique on the network, like a specific ID badge with a job title.
16 characters, specific job title. Got it. But where's the danger? I've heard about null sessions. Sounds bad.
Oh, it can be really bad. Yeah, the null session is probably the most infamous NetBIOS vulnerability. Basically, it's a connection to a Windows machine that uses no username and no password, 0 credentials.
Wow.
Yeah, just walk right in. And the scary part, this vulnerability was kicking around for over a decade. It was still a thing even in Windows XP. Microsoft put out security bulletins like MS-03034 because it was serious. And, even after patches came out, misconfigurations meant it often remained exploitable. It just shows that packing alone isn't enough. You got to figure things right, disable old stuff you don't need.
That's wild. A vulnerability from the XP era potentially still causing problems, like finding an old key that still unlocks a modern door. So, okay, are there tools built into Windows that let you poke around for these kinds of issues, stuff you don't need to download?
Oh, absolutely. Windows comes packed with some pretty useful enumeration tools right out of the box. There's the Nbtstat command. Run that, and it shows you the NetBIOS name table for a remote computer, tells you what services are registered. Yeah. Then you've got NetView, super handy. Just type NetView, computer name, and it lists the shared resources on that machine, folders, printers.
Simple.
Yeah, and NetUse. That one lets you actually connect to those shares if they're open. These are like the first tools in your kit for Windows enumeration. Directly ties into using current tools and understanding how hackers operate.
Okay, so built-in tools give you a starting point. But I bet there are more powerful, dedicated tools for digging deeper into Windows, right?
Definitely. When you need to get really comprehensive, you look at third-party tools. Take DumpSec. It's an older tool from Foundstone, but still powerful. It literally dumps a ton of information from a Windows system. Permissions on shares, printers, the registry, user accounts, nicely formatted too, like in tables, policies, rights, services. It just pulls out almost everything configuration-wise, like grabbing the entire contents of a system's filing cabinet.
Whoa, okay. That sounds like information overload, potentially. Is there anything more visual? Sometimes seeing the connections helps?
Good point. Yeah, for a graphical view, Hyena is a really well-regarded tool. It's more of a management and security tool, but great for enumeration. Where DumpSec gives you that raw data dump, Hyena displays things visually. It can map out Microsoft terminal services, the Windows network, web client stuff. It helps you find users and groups easily. It's like having, well, a graphical map overlaid on the blueprints DumpSec provides. And honestly, knowing when to use the raw data versus the visual map, that's a key skill for efficiency and for explaining findings to others.
That makes sense. Different tools for different perspectives. Now, what about the big vulnerability scanners? I hear Nessus mentioned all the time. How does that fit in?
Right, Nessus. It's hugely popular for vulnerability scanning, and it's also a powerful enumeration tool, especially on larger networks. Big advantage, it runs almost anywhere, Windows, Mac, Linux, FreeBSD. So you can scan a whole mix of systems from one place. It's excellent at identifying vulnerabilities across different OS types, which inherently involves enumeration to figure out what services and configurations are present. And there's its open source cousin, OpenVAS, or Green Mode Security Assistant, offers similar powerful scanning and enumeration features. These tools are essential for real-world penetration testing, finding those weaknesses across potentially thousands of devices.
Okay, Nessus and OpenVAS for broad scanning. That neatly takes us toward the Nix world. UNIX-like systems, Linux, Solaris, etc. They run so much of the internet's infrastructure. How do we enumerate those systems?
Good question. For Nix systems, a key protocol you often look at is SNMP, the Simple Network Management Protocol. It's used for network management, letting admins monitor and configure devices remotely. It runs on Windows too, but it's a common target on Nix boxes. There are tools like SNMP Walk that are designed specifically to query devices running SNMP. And you'd be surprised how often you find systems still using the default community strings, basically, default passwords.
Oh, the default settings trap.
Exactly. Easy win for an attacker if it's not changed. Another classic, though older, tool for Nix is the Finger utility. Lets you see who's logged into a system. The Finger service, Fingered, usually listens on TCP port 79. Running Finger at host name can sometimes give you usernames, maybe full names, login times, useful little bits of info.
Still useful, even if it's old school.
Yeah, sometimes the old ways still yield results. And of course, Nessus, as we said, is great for Nix enumeration too. It's very versatile.
So similar principles, but different specific tools and protocols for Nix. Makes sense. And there are quite a few different flavors of UNIX out there, aren't there?
Oh yeah, you've got the historical lineage from AT&T UNIX, things like Solaris from Sun, now Oracle, various BSDs, and then of course Linux. Linus Torvalds created Linux for standard Intel PCs, and it just exploded. Each has its quirks, but the enumeration techniques looking for open ports, vulnerable services, user info are broadly similar. Understanding this landscape, knowing the tools for each, that really builds those core skills. Interpreting hacking tools, recognizing vulnerabilities, conducting pen tests, it's crucial.
Okay, this has been fantastic on the technical side, the tools, the vulnerabilities, the OS differences, but let's zoom out for our audience, especially those Tarleton State students planning their careers or the folks already working in MIS, CIS, IT. What's the big picture? What's the practical career-boosting takeaway from mastering enumeration?
I think the absolute biggest takeaway isn't just memorizing commands. It's about fundamentally shifting your mindset. To defend a system well, you have to learn to think like someone trying to break in. That's the core of ethical hacking. Understanding enumeration lets you do that. It helps you recognize vulnerabilities from the attacker's perspective, which is key for security reporting and, ultimately, defense. It lets you be proactive, find the holes, and patch them before they get exploited. That's how you genuinely improve network defense. And look, for your career, knowing this stuff cold, that makes you stand out. In interviews, on the job, finding a critical flaw that automated scans missed because you knew how to enumerate manually, that gets you noticed. It shows competence, initiative. It makes you a really valuable asset, whether you're aiming for cybersecurity roles, network admin, auditing, anywhere security matters.
So it's about playing proactive offense for your own defense, and it makes you a stronger player on the team, boosts your career.
It's exactly right. Mastering these techniques is about building foundational skills for long-term growth. It feeds into lifelong learning, opens doors to leadership opportunities down the line. It's about taking ownership, becoming that go-to person who deeply understands how systems can be compromised and therefore how to protect them. Imagine you're the one who flags that forgotten, unpatched server running an old service, found through careful enumeration when everyone else just relied on the automated scanner. That kind of diligence, that proactive security thinking, that's what builds a strong reputation and leads to bigger opportunities. Lead security roles, specialized pen testing gigs. It starts here.
That's a really powerful way to frame it. We've covered a lot today, really diving into enumeration. It hammers home just how vital this step is, not just for hacking, but for building strong defenses. Remember that image we started with, the hacker with X-ray vision, seeing all the secrets. Well, by understanding and mastering enumeration, you get the X-ray vision. You become the guardian who can see the weaknesses and fix them before anyone else exploits them. So if this deep dive hit the mark for you, if you're ready to really own your tech career path, please do subscribe, like this, share it around. Your support helps us keep bringing these crucial insights your way. And here's something to chew on. As you think about your own digital world, or the networks you might manage someday, what's maybe one hidden detail, one potential vulnerability that careful enumeration could uncover?
Think like a hacker. Act like a guardian. Until next time, keep your systems and your ethics strong.